and welcome to the Culture Ward, where we dissect and dismantle pop culture in all its forms. Welcome to a new edition of the Weekly Wrap-Up, a series where we take a look at some recent pop culture news stories and offer our thoughts and opinions. The Star Wars universe may be in trouble, as early box office estimates for the upcoming Mandalorian Grogu fall well short of expectations. Can the Star Wars franchise survive another massive disappointment? Join us as we take a not-too-deep dive into the news on this installment of the Weekly Wrap-Up. But before we begin, please take a second to hit that subscribe button and help us grow the channel. As always, it really means a lot to us. And don't forget to like and share the video if you enjoy the content. Now, without further ado, let's get into it. Alright, so let's talk about Star Wars once again. Disney acquired the franchise in 2012 when they purchased Lucasfilm for $4 billion. And it seemed like they were on the right track at first too. They released The Force Awakens in 2016, which went on to become one of the highest grossing films of all time, and followed that up with Rogue One, a Star Wars story, which also grossed over $1 billion and was quite well received by fans. But then it went downhill fast. While The Last Jedi and The Rise of Skywalker either each broke $1 billion or flirted with it, fan reactions were divided to say the least. Solo, a Star Wars story, was the first Star Wars movie to actually flop. Although we have found out since that The Rise of Skywalker's budget was actually $600 million, which means that it too flopped despite its $1 billion box office haul. Disney Plus content hasn't fared much better. A couple seasons each of The Mandalorian and Andor were fairly well received by audiences, but practically everything else either divided the fan base or was outright despised by it. Ahsoka, Obi-Wan Kenobi, Book of Boba Fett, the third season of The Mandalorian, and of course, The Acolyte were all divisive at best. The bottom line is that Star Wars needed a win at a time when fan loyalty and interest seems practically non-existent. So it was time to finally release a new feature film, the first since Rise of Skywalker in 2019. Several such potential movies had been announced or teased in recent years, from a new movie featuring Rey, directed by Sharmeen Obaid-Chinoy, to a Rogue Squadron movie directed by Patty Jenkins, and even an entire trilogy by Rian Johnson. But 7 years after Rise of Skywalker, none of them has surfaced or even made significant progress toward production. Cue The Mandalorian and Grogu. Presumably initially planned as a fourth season to The Mandalorian's Disney Plus series, the Jon Favreau-led movie was announced last year and is set to premiere in May, just a few weeks away. And oh boy is everyone excited, right? Okay, so I did a video about this movie a couple months ago where we talked about the first trailer and the universally panned Super Bowl spot and questioned whether anyone was still invested in this franchise. Well, now we have some new predictions in the last few weeks leading up to release, and, well, things aren't looking great for The Mandalorian and Grogu. Let's take a look at this article. So Disney's first Star Wars movie in 7 years is tracking to be yet another massive disappointment. When the Walt Disney Company bought out Lucasfilm, and by extension the Star Wars universe, expectations were that the two combined companies would make Hollywood's most popular franchise even bigger. Instead of going decades between Star Wars movies, Disney would put its creative might behind more consistent releases and expanding the universe. The company would release movies as part of the core stories, then do films or shows that focused on side characters or other stories. Initially, it seemed like the approach, led primarily by then Lucasfilm head Kathleen Kennedy, would be a success. The Force Awakens was a gigantic success, and while it didn't exactly reinvent the wheel creatively, it launched the new Disney era of Star Wars with a whopping $937 million domestic box office gross. Well, with few exceptions, almost everything to come out of the Star Wars universe since has degraded the brand and fan expectations. Yes, Andor is widely praised, the first season of The Mandalorian was a big hit, and Rogue One, a Star Wars story, has seen its reputation improve since its release in 2016. On the other hand, there was the remarkably woke Disney Plus show The Acolyte, which was canceled after one poorly reviewed season. The Last Jedi and The Rise of Skywalker were widely disliked. Other movies like Solo, a Star Wars story, were critical and box office disappointments. And even The Mandalorian has seen its impact diminish. Sure enough, the first Star Wars movie in nearly 7 years, The Mandalorian and Grogu, directed by Jon Favreau, is set to hit theaters in May, and with tracking data now hitting the industry, we can see just how bad things have gotten for Disney. You may not have heard much about it, but The Mandalorian Grogu is a big deal for Disney, the first major theatrical release in the Star Wars universe since 2019. The Grogu character was a cultural phenomenon for a year or so, making the streaming show a must-watch. It's also the first Star Wars film set outside the main trilogy since Solo: A Star Wars Story in 2018. That movie was viewed as a disappointment when it opened to just over $84 million domestically and grossed just $392 million globally. Well, this latest attempt isn't looking much better. Industry website Box Office Theory reported that the opening weekend box office prediction for The Mandalorian Grogu based on pre-release ticket sales is just $71 million. Even Solo's opening weekend, adjusted for inflation, would be about $110 million in today's dollars. This latest Star Wars release is tracking to come in nearly $40 million behind that. While the film has a lower budget, which has been estimated at around $166 million, this is still a disappointment. It may wind up breaking even or turning a small profit, but unless the international market surprises or word of mouth is strong, it won't be a huge financial hit. And given the poor response to the trailers, word of mouth is more likely to be negative than positive. So did you get that? The Mandalorian Grogu is tracking for a $71 million opening weekend, roughly $13 million less than Solo: A Star Wars Story, which went on to bomb with a net haul of less than $400 million. Now, to be fair, some recent estimates predict a $90 to $100 million opening, but not only are those numbers extremely doubtful, but it really wouldn't make that much of a difference. If this movie brings in less than about $500 million total, it'll likely be viewed as a failure, and would certainly not have the effect of revitalizing the franchise. And frankly, the fact that the first theatrical release of a Star Wars movie in 7 years is generating so little excitement should be downright embarrassing, and definitely doesn't bode well for the future of the franchise. Oh well, maybe the next one will turn things around. Fingers crossed. What do you think? Are you excited about The Mandalorian and Grogu? Do you think the Star Wars brand can be saved? Join the conversation in the comments below. As always, thank you so much for watching. Please like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video. Bye for now. We hope to see you next time in the Culture Ward.